So it's that thing, right? Yeah, it's that thing. How do you like that? How is that? How does that work for you? Like, seriously? Like, I just want to ask the question, how does that work for anyone? I mean, think about it. How does that work for anyone? Right? It's just the craziest story I've ever heard. And I just, it's kind of like, good morning, everybody. Good morning. How is it going? People have already, I missed the question. Oh, so we're talking about the story behind the creation of an American brand, Jack Daniels whiskey, and how a slave in the American South was helped to create it, but had never been credited for it because of racism and so on. So we're going to talk about that. Has a lot to do with reparations and how people perhaps feel about some of these things. I don't know. I want to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to talk about this some more and see what else people want to say about it and keep the conversation going. I find it interesting because I think a lot of people think that, uh, and I think a lot of it has to do with messaging, how people feel about stuff that happens. We fail to realize how much our opinions of how stuff happens is influenced by others, right? We sometimes we forget that. We don't realize how much how much how much stuff happens, uh, and what we fail to understand sometimes is how much do people. I've been sitting here. Has this ever happened to you? I've been waiting on someone to message me. They said they wanted to speak with me desperately, and I waited forever, for almost an hour. Now finally, they want my attention, and now is the time. And I'm like, I messaged you. I messaged you. I'm like, I messaged you. What was it? So I don't know. People are funny that way, right? And I am thinking that we've probably, I'm sharing my screen with others so that whatever. So they're seeing everything that's on my screen. That's all they're seeing. They can't see anything else, right? Uh, they're seeing what's on my screen. So if I were doing a presentation, then they could see this. So I can't open my Gmail because then they would see my emails. Great. So I wanted to talk about it's Fearless Friday, right? And I wanted to I want to first let me start off. Let me start off. So we're gonna start this off the right way. So I come in contact with a lot of people, right? And from time to time, sometimes I find out I was reading something on a post this morning that kind of touched me in a way that I probably don't want to be touched. Uh, an Instagram influencer was posting about how she looks, right? She didn't do it in an overt kind of way. She probably was advertising a makeup product. So I'm not wearing makeup right now. I'm all natural. It's summer. I want to give my skin a break from that kind of stuff. It's summer, and then you put it on and you go out in the sun and it melts. And I have an active lifestyle. I go in and out all day, out of buildings and out of cars. So anyway, so this young woman, this Instagram influencer, posted about herself. She wasn't comparing herself to others. She didn't say, "Oh, I'm so pretty. Look at me." She was just saying, "Look, she was walking past something and she said, 'Just look at my glow.'" She probably was advertising a product. And a young woman in her story answered by saying, Well, why? A young woman, good, I don't need any makeup. I don't know, thank you. Right? But a young woman in her story, I kid you not, a young woman in her story said, I wish I were light like you. And that's just the influencer. You could tell how she felt. She said, oh my God, no, you are beautiful. And I read it and I went, can you just tell that someone, the messaging that we're giving to folks today is that if you did we have we been talking about it? You guys have heard me, you have all seen it. The messaging we're giving to folks, and it has always been like that, is that this is the acceptable standard of beauty. And if you don't fit into this narrow definition of beauty, then you're not beautiful. And so some people take that and internalize that and hate themselves because they don't look like the society's projected standard of beauty. So I answered and I told her, frankly, you're beautiful. I don't care what you look like. You're your own standard of beauty. Set your own standard of beauty. Not because you don't look like this doesn't mean that you have to, you're not. Do you see where I'm coming from? When I was growing up, no one told me I was pretty. I never heard that when I was growing up. My mother never told me I was pretty. I was 50 years old when I asked my mother, why did you never tell me I was a pretty child? And she couldn't answer. I don't know. Maybe they grew up in a different. Maybe the way they were taught was not to make kids feel good. I don't know, but no one told me I was pretty. I didn't know that I was pretty, and that's why I had so much, pushback from people. I didn't understand it. It was when I turned 20. I think it was 19 or 20 when someone suggested that I go into a beauty pageant, and I was like, a beauty pageant? What for? It had never occurred. It was the wider, moving into the wider community where people started telling me that I was pretty, that I began to see it. Can you imagine? It's a good thing they had spent some time building up my self-esteem on my brain. Otherwise, I would have probably felt like somebody else. I remember when I first went to buy makeup, they made me feel so, because they never told me I was pretty. They made me feel so bad about myself. When I went to buy makeup, I wanted to blend in and look like everyone else. And the woman at the makeup counter said, no, you can't wear that color. That's not your color. This is your color. Do you see? Because their standard of beauty was different. So they were projecting their own standard of beauty, and no one saw the uniqueness in how I looked. So I get that. So in a lot of ways, I think that's why when girls come into our shelter, when I interact with women who have been disadvantaged, I feel some level of empathy and I feel some level of responsibility, more so to communicate and to affirm them in their own skin, whatever they look like, white, native, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, black, it doesn't matter. I feel that I have to make them feel that you are still beautiful in spite of what someone else might have told you. Thank you, Kenneth, right? But I kid you not, it's the most amazing thing. And I spend a lot of time with my own children. I have two daughters, and I spend a lot of time with them, affirming them from they were born, because I recognized how different it must have been. Do you see what I'm saying? So I am saying all of that to say to you, affirm the women in your life. If you have daughters, make sure your voice is the one they are going to remember, telling them how pretty, how beautiful they are, right? Your women, your girlfriends, your wives, your women, whatever they look like, right? Affirm them, tell them, because that's the voice that they will hear. Because for a long time, I didn't know. I didn't know that I was. And I don't know, I can't say that maybe, the folks around me, I don't know what their story was, because I never confronted it with them. What I did was I found a way to deal with it myself and just kept it moving, and said, oh, well, if you don't like it tough, sucks to be you, right? People will always project onto you their own vision of themselves. But can you see what I'm saying? And the reason I'm talking about it is because I recognize that we have to tell people what to do about what to do. We have to tell people how to believe, especially the people for whom we are emotionally responsible, our children, our nieces, our sons, our brothers, or daughters, or sisters. We tell them how important it is that they are affirmed and build up their self esteem so that whatever negative voices are around them in their environment, whether the negative voices come through an Instagram post or whatever it comes through, that you are so built up that you know yourself, that it almost, I kid you not, and I'm just scrolling through Instagram, just trying to find something hilarious and funny. And then I came across this and I had to stop. Like, come on. We have people have issues with their body images for a reason. It's because of this projection of what someone else's standard of beauty is. And that's not necessarily true. What if you come from a background where everybody looks like me or everybody looks like you? But is that to say that the people who don't look like me or don't look like you are not beautiful? That's ridiculous, isn't it? And I feel like a lot of the people who say those things are not well traveled. They're not sophisticated. So I tend to view them from a limited perspective because you obviously are not exposed. Because if you have been, you recognize that in the plethora of human faces and the diaspora, that is our humanity, people look different from different parts of the world, from different regions. And people are, a beauty is beauty is beauty. It doesn't matter what color it is, how it looks, what shape the face is. Beauty is beauty is beauty. Whether it's a man or a woman, beauty is beauty is beauty. It's that simple, right? I don't know. I wish she's on Instagram. This young lady. I know she's gotten a ton of inspiration and affirmation from people and positive reinforcements of body styles and body images. We've got to talk about it. Negative imagery. I mean, you got to understand that people will always have something to say about you and how you look, but it's up to you to know what is true and what is not. The person has to be built up, but if they weren't, they're not going to know. I'm reading some comments from this. I'm surprised you guys on. The beauty on your inside, Beth Golding Lewin, the beauty on your inside should project on the outside. Beauty comes from within. And sometimes it's hard. Honestly, I appreciate your comments, Beth. We go way back. Hey, shout out to you all, right? But sometimes, even for some people, they don't even know that. They don't even know that there is beauty from within. Someone else is saying, pale face don't see beauty. He only sees it in himself. Oh God, they're gonna start. Right? It sometimes, Beth, people don't even know that they're beautiful. They don't even know how to uncover the beauty that is within them. I agree with you that beauty comes from within. Sometimes the nicest persons are, you can see it, it's evident in their face and so on. But it takes, like they say, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. It takes someone to perceive that. But how are you going to project a beauty from within if every environment you've ever been in has told you that you're ugly, that you don't fit in, that you're not the right person for this, that you don't match? Then you're not going to know that there's any beauty from within because you're going to feel terrible about yourself. And I can only say that from someone who has experienced that. I've experienced colorism. I've experienced racism. I mean, I grew up in a culture where I was not always the only, my face was not the only color in the room. And people made me feel bad about myself for a long time. They projected. In fact, I remember being in a pageant once where they told me to go take a tan just so I could fit in and look like everyone else. And my skin burnt, like it literally peeled because they wanted me to sit in the sun all day to turn. And then they told me that when the lights hit my skin, there were like 3 of us who looked like that, right? I can't say their names because I don't know if they have families or descendants on here on social media, and they told us, I kid you not, they told us to put makeup on our skin so that when the lights hit our skin, we wouldn't reflect white. So there's colorism all around. So again, it goes back to imaging and projection and what people believe their standard of beauty is. So if they don't feel like, if no one has ever told you that you are pretty, if no one has ever made you feel good about yourself, how can you know that there is beauty from within? It's amazing. And this is why, maybe that's why today I work so hard at making people comfortable around me. When I encounter women, and especially young women, I try to level it and to make them feel it comfortable, make them put them at ease. I'm one of those women who compliment other women. I see some chick out there and she looks great. I'm like, you're looking good today. I really like how you wear your hair. I'll admire people's hairstyles in public. I saw a lady the other day at the gas station and with a hair color that I am not brave enough to try. But the way she wore it with such style and and vivaciousness in her personality. I said, I really like your hair. What I was really saying is, I like the way that you project yourself, the confidence. I like seeing that in people because when you feel like that, it is harder for you to be beaten down. Let's just be real. Society is not here to build you up. Most people do not take the time out to say good things about you. You all know this. You work somewhere. When was the last time somebody told you good job and meant it? Even if they probably say the words mechanically because they have gone through sensitivity training at work, right? But that doesn't mean that that's what they're saying, right? Tony Turner, right? Right? Most people don't take the time to encourage folk. Most people, even when we marry, after you marry, they get used to you. That when was the last time either of you told your partner that you're looking good today? Honey, you look great today. That color does well for you. Most people don't. So for some, it's a huge challenge to be able to say that, right? The beauty on pray face, somebody else is saying something here. I agree with all of you, right? It's incredible how beauty is perceived in different spaces, how beauty has its own standard. I for years, like I told you, when I was growing up, they never told me I was pretty. So I existed in a world where I didn't know. And I had no idea what I looked like because my sense of self and how I felt about myself was perhaps defined by how people reacted to me. I remember when I was in elementary school, or what we consider to be middle school here in the States, there's a child. We were children. And a lot of you are going to say, this is the games that people play. But where do children get these ideas from? Right? And this girl said, you can't play with us because you smell raw. Why do I smell raw? I don't even smell raw. And she said, because people like you smell raw when it rains, people who look like you. She was darker skinned than I was. I kid you not. I'm saying it because it is what it is, right? We have the messaging. Where did she get that messaging? She was a child. So obviously that didn't come from her. That came from the people and the society and the environment around her. So she projected her own self-dislike onto someone else, onto someone who didn't look like her. Do you see what I'm saying? And in a lot of cases, this is what colorism is. I see it all the time. I encounter people from different ethnicities all over the world. People come from different ethnicities. The same things happen where the standard of beauty is pale, and the closer you are to pale is the more beautiful you are perceived to be. And then the better you are. If that, can you imagine crazy stuff like that? And so people are derided and put in a category and told that you don't matter, that you are not important, you're not significant. Those are wrong messages to communicate. And I feel like, I don't care what you look like. I want you to know that you are created especially for your purpose. There is a reason why you are the way you are. And you were created significantly for a significant purpose. And I hope that you are living out your significance to the people in your environment, the people whom you impact, right? And you feel significant about yourself. This is why I encourage everybody, fulfill your dream. Because sometimes if here in America we use our jobs to determine our outlook, our jobs determine our usefulness, our jobs at work, our position and title at work determine how happy we are, how fulfilled we are. Well, I'm a manager at JC Penney. I'm a retail store manager, or I'm a vice president of engineering. And we use those jobs to determine, well, what about when that doesn't exist anymore? What about when they pull that out? Do you still feel significant? So, how you feel about yourself has to start from here. And if you never had it before, this is your invitation and affirmation to feel good about yourself. I don't care what you look like. You could be short, fat, tall, dark, skinny, green, yellow. It doesn't matter. You are here for a purpose. There are 7 billion people on the planet. Find yourself in a group of people who are going to affirm you and who are going to love you. What I did was, when those people around me didn't serve my interests, they took away from me and were more interested in tearing me down, I eliminated them totally from my space and moved forward with what I felt that I had to do. I recognized that I have a purpose. Do you have your purpose? Do you know your purpose? I made sure that I understood why I was born. I used to tell myself that there must have been a reason for why I was born. And there is a very good reason. So I sought to find it. So as a child, I would write in my journals, and I would write things about how I was going to be. And I would look at magazines and I said, this is the life I'm going to live. This is how I'm going to be. And this is what I'm going to do. And it built up me. There's no shame in my game. There's no shame in my game. I am me all day, and I have to be because of what I do. And you should be because of what you do. Do not let others tell you that you shouldn't invest in yourself. When you feel good about yourself and have confidence, do not allow others' negative, toxic viewpoints to impact you or influence you. They probably need to ask you, why are you the way you are? If it had not been for adversity, I would not have known myself. Maybe I needed those early experiences so that I can be sure and be confident of who I am. Somebody else is saying something. She says, I always knew I was beautiful. I was affirmed, and I will always affirm myself. Psalm 39, 139. I always give this scripture to young ladies and gentlemen in my group that I mentor. That's amazing. That is amazing, right? That is amazing. And I'm grateful that you had the experience to be affirmed in your beauty and how you look. That's great. And I'm glad that you're doing that to encourage others. That's a good thing. Shout out to you. And it's one of the things that, as we grow and as our perspectives expand, I like to think that living in a culture as diverse and as multifaceted as we do, that we incorporate people who are from different spaces, different places. People come from different places. And as we look around the spectrum of humanity, that your group, your social grouping should reflect not just people who you look like, but people who reflect the spectrum of humanity, right? So check your circle. And if everyone in your circle looks like you probably need to rethink. You probably need to rethink how you're looking at humanity. Some people, my daughter likes to refer to it. She uses this phrase a lot. She says that people sometimes project that I'm going to use her words, they're a bastion of progressive liberalism. No, they're a paragon of progressive liberalism. And she was saying that one day, and I had to say, wait, that's a good thing. That's a good one. I'm going to use it. So I give all credit to her for studying it. And I said, that's true, because a lot of people tend to think that I am, I come, they tend to think I'm liberal, and they tend to think I'm progressive because I think like this. But then in their utterances, they don't realize how much they've been socialized to think otherwise. A lot of how we look at life is not necessarily from the wellspring of our own intellectualism, nor is it from the wellspring of how our own experiences. It's from how we were socialized. They know what they're doing. It's called subliminal. It's subliminal and damaging in its intent because it is pointed specifically at manipulating your thoughts to assume the thoughts of how another group wants you to think. And so you wind up sitting back thinking that this is how you should be. This is how you should look. This is how you should view things. And that's not necessarily true. That's not true at all, because what we have learned is that that is what? Very damaging. That is very damaging. That has caused people to feel really bad about themselves. Yeah, and it hurts. People sometimes go home and sit in a corner and cry. When we make fun of people, when we tell people that they're not good enough, people go home and go in a closet and cry. People also go home and sit down and eat more stuff because we tell them about their negative presentations. When we tear people down, and I am not saying it's your responsibility to affirm anybody, but if you're going to take the time to make fun of someone's appearance, you could also take the time to affirm someone's appearance. Do you see what I'm saying? Since you feel so much that it is up to you to tell, or since someone else's presence challenges your perspective of how you look, then maybe you should feel so challenged that you go tell someone that they're pretty, they're good looking, they're handsome, whatever. I've encountered too many broken people who were told, especially young women, right? Especially young women, because that's whom who are drawn to me, who have been told. I recently had an encounter with someone who is educated, right? And she works in an environment where at the time she was the only person who looks like her in that environment. And when they fired her, they made her feel that the reason they fired her was because she came from a specific demographic. And what she was saying, I said to her, do you realize what you're saying is that over time, your socialization with them made you feel that you were diminished, that you were not as good as them because you didn't look like them. And this is someone who is educated, who has incredible accomplishments. And she didn't realize it because it was subliminal. I said, every time you said something or did something, they communicated subliminally. So it was never overt. A lot of what people experience is not intentional. It's sometimes it's overt, but it's subliminal. But don't get me wrong, it's damaging. So how do you change this? How do you change the negativity and the toxicness of people telling you that your appearance doesn't matter? It's almost as if they're telling you that yourself, when presented, does not matter. That's not true. That's not true. I challenge you to go home and sit before a mirror. And I want you to look straight in the mirror and look at yourself and remind yourself of how great you are, how beautiful you are. You don't have to take a magnifying glass and identify every specific feature or the composition of your facial structure. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is to remind yourself of who you are and why you're here. And those negative voices that surround you, eliminate them. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you and not those who tolerate you. Too often, we end up in social groups and in all sorts of spaces where people literally, you're there because they either know you, they work with you, or you're married to somebody, or so on. But they do not bring they do not encourage you or motivate you or inspire you. I say this all the time, and when I go into certain groups, there are different reactions. In one group of people, they will say things like, you've written, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. It's so great meeting you. And then you go to another group and they're like, and to me, their attitude to me is not about me. It's a reflection of how they were socialized. What they don't realize is that they're projecting some sort of self-hatred because they were socialized to think that people who look like them cannot achieve those things, that only a different group of people can. So it's no, I don't take the time to educate them. I just smile and move through it because at the end of the day, their opinion of me does not diminish or nor does it value me. It doesn't validate me. So I keep it moving. But do I ever regroup with them again? Probably not. Because if you are not, in my estimation, if you are not encouraging or motivating me, then I don't need to be around you. I encounter folks all the time, right? I have certain people in my corner whom, I keep they're there because they're always they have the I've given them license to check. I've given them license to say things. But when I don't ask for it or when I don't expect it, that's when they're in my corner. I have one who silently, her reaction, she's so proud all the time, every time of what I do. But then what people don't know is that on the phone, that's the person who says, well, you could have handled this better. Well, you could have done this. We all need people like that. But there's one thing she doesn't do. She doesn't have to tear me down for her to feel good about herself. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we surround ourselves with people who do that. This is something that because in that young lady's post, I can't screenshot it and post it because I don't think I would have had to obtain her permission. And maybe she wouldn't feel good about the whole world and a much wider audience hearing about it. But we all have issues, and we all need to take some time to study our actions. Yes, words matter. I did a course, a seminar some years ago, and it was about violence prevention. And one of the things we talked about was language matters. People do not realize how much language matters, right? I have two daughters. They're 10 years apart. So they are 10 years apart. I mean, one is Generation Y, right? One is Generation Z. They're like miles apart. So the way I raised one is different from what happened with the other, the youngest, because she grew up with Instagram and so on. And the other one grew up, she was already grown by the time Facebook came along, right? The other one, all she knows is social media, right? So I found that in her youthful year, in her adolescence, it was like extracting a tooth to get her attention directed back to what is good and positive, because so much of what she experienced was through social media. Social media played a great role in influencing how they think. I think as a parent, you either cotton to it, right? Or you because you can fight it, but are you going to win the battle? You might win this. So what I'd said, okay, I'm not going to win that battle, but at the end of the day, I'm going to win the war on parenting. So you give some, and then you take some. You give some. That give and take just works with that one, whereas with the other one, it was my way or the highway. You see what I'm saying? So, but a lot of it, what I was trying to do was to make sure that she succumbed to the right influence, making sure that those folks on social media whom I know target young people and who have toxic and negative things to say about young people didn't impact the way she felt about herself. You've all seen the YouTube videos of people who killed themselves, who were bullied by other folks who told them they didn't fit in, or your nose doesn't look right, or your lips don't look like this. Some of the most famous people today, like Angelina Jolie, who is celebrated for her looks today, her beauty and her appearance. Well, when she was a kid, she was bullied because she had big lips. That's what they called her. They called her nigger lips when she was a kid. And she was skinny. So they made fun of her. Well, what does she make money off today? Her looks? Her looks? Anyone? Right? Nicolas Cage says it was the same thing. They made fun of how he looked. What does he make money off? He's a great actor. His looks. I'm just saying, right? Kerry Washington? Anyone? Right? People make fun of other people. I tend to think that sometimes people see greatness in you, and they are threatened sometimes by what they see that you could become. So it becomes a challenge to them to pick on someone whom they perceive, whose confidence is not built on the same stuff that their confidence is built on. My youngest daughter had a problem about a year and a half ago with a teacher at school. She taught art or some foolishness like that. So it's not even a required course, kind of, but it was an elective that in the sum of credits and so on you have to, matriculate to the next grade. And for the entire, my daughter is quiet. My youngest daughter is quiet. She tends to handle things on her own. So by the time it gets to me, I know that she's trying to handle it. So by the time it gets to me, that means the situation is way out of hand. So by the time she came to me, I was alert because I knew based on who she is, she handles things. So the teacher was picking on her all year. She said, no matter what she did, I can never get a good grade in this woman's class. I can't get a good grade in her class. She's always picking on me. Every answer I say is wrong. Picked on her, picked on her. At first, I kind of was like, well, maybe she's just being a teacher. Well, maybe she just thinks you can do better. No, my daughter is not inclined to be an artist. No way, shape of the game. She hates art. She's not a writer either. She's like, those artistic things are not. She's not inclined that way. She's a scientist. Tell her to go create some formula. She's happy all day. So when I listened to it at first, I thought maybe my daughter is wrong. Surely the teacher, I wanted to give the teacher the benefit of the doubt, and I did. But then when my daughter said, Mom, listen to this. She came home one day and she said, listen to this. I said, no, something is wrong. So I reached out to the teacher. She didn't answer. She ignored my emails. Okay, I forgot about it. About 2 months later, my daughter came back. And I said, wait a minute, didn't I reach out to her by email? So this time, I emailed the teacher and sent a copy to the principal. Well, what do you know? I got an answer within 5 minutes. It was from the assistant principal. So I said, we need to sit down and talk about this because this has been going on for a while and blah, blah, blah. So they set up a meeting. We went to the meeting. When I got there, the teacher was sitting there. And I looked at her and I looked at my daughter and I'm like, what's the story here? And I asked her, I said, as a parent and as a mother, why did this happen? And she couldn't answer. And I said, you're the teacher. My tax dollars are paying your salary. I expect that you're going to affirm my child. You're not going to tell her anything negative. That is not even true. So please tell me how you forfeited on your responsibility. I said, and as a teacher and as an adult female, your job is to mentor and mold. What is going on here? So end result, I told the principal, I said, this is the end of the year. For the next, they had like about 3 more weeks. I said, for the next 3 weeks, I don't want my daughter in her class. That's it. I said, don't put her around that person because I said, I don't know we've never had any complaints. I said, nobody was ever brave enough to come forward because by now, victimology. You know that when one person complains, chances are there are hundreds of complaints back there. I said, nobody was probably brave enough to come forward. So she had license to do what she did. I said, go ask other people. I'm pretty sure if you hear that one student complain, you're going to hear that other students have something to say because this is a pattern. I said, these things come from patterns. I left it with them. Ever since then, things have worked out. I guess she didn't have a problem this year. That means nobody's going to say anything. But do you see what I'm saying? As an adult, I find myself at all times amongst younger women. And I make sure that my messaging to them is positive about their body image and about how they see themselves and their roles in society. What are they supposed to do? But I'm comfortable. I want them to know that I see what my role is. Having been where they have been, it's my job to mold, to encourage, and to set a pattern, a positive pattern for them to follow. I think a lot of us need to, I think that has to come from a place that is deep within. No, am I perfect? No, I am just as scarred as the rest of us. Yes, I have had issues. Yes, all kinds of stuff have happened. But at the end of the day, here's the good news. The good news is that I won. The good news is that whatever that negativity had intended, it did not win. It's like oil off my back. Do you see where I'm coming from? And I think in a lot of ways, when you listen and when you listen to how people express about themselves, then you know that it's coming from a place that is so deeply scarred and it needs healing. Sometimes we all need some healing, some good old-fashioned water, just wash it over and just change the way we think. Look in the mirror. In today's society, they tell us that you're too old. Hey, you turn 30 and you're old, 35 and 40. So if you show up with gray hair, they're not going to hire you, because in other cultures, age is perceived as being wise. In this culture, age is perceived as you don't know anything. You're irrelevant, you're insignificant. If you come too fat, you're lazy. They call you fat. They do all kind of body shaming stuff where they talk about people like you're fat, you're this, you're that. You don't know what people are going through. People make fun of people's appearances. Sometimes a woman has the wrong time of the month and you're bloated. You take a picture of your belly pulse and people go crazy over that. So you are like, oh my God, oh my God. You enter midlife and suddenly you are eating normally how you've always eaten, and now all of a sudden midlife comes and you're like, what the heck is going on? Men make fun of women's bodies and the negativity. I was listening to, my children play rap music in the car. So I'm intimately familiar with the phraseologies. And I've often asked for interpretation is the best way I can describe it. What does that mean? I kid you not. And I was hearing, there's a song, and in one of the songs this girl was singing, and she was talking about ghetto body or ghetto booty. So I said, ghetto booty. And she's like, ghetto booty with pretty face. And I was like, wait, let me dissect that. So, the next day I asked my daughter, I said, where does that come from? How can a person's body be ghetto? Ghetto is a physical place. Yes, I know we have taken ghetto to mean attach it to people's attitudes. But what we're doing is transferring a place to someone's person. So how can you say someone's body is ghetto? And I said, where would she get that? You see how she subliminally interpreted that? So that she's repeating that she has a ghetto booty and a pretty face. Messaging. Mind-blowing. Yes, totally mind-blowing. Totally beyond mind-blowing. The messaging, we have to constantly affirm it. Yeah, because the messaging clearly is always saying that this is what you should look like. It's unrealistic. When I don't eat, I get irritable. The longest periods I go without food are overnight. So I don't eat after 7 or 8 o'clock in the evenings until the next day. Sometimes I eat by 9 o'clock the next morning. I'll have a boiled egg or tea or something. So I go like 12 to 18 hours without eating. That's the longest in a 24-hour period, right? So some people, why are we attaching negatives to that? Do you see where I'm coming from? So we attach, so people in Hollywood whom you see on TV who weigh 90 pounds, guys, that's not realistic. What you're not seeing is how airbrushed the cameras have been. People are unrealistic. They use cameras and all kinds of stuff and they do excessive surgeries. Would you? We would all do a tummy tuck, breast lift, butt lift, whatever, tuck it in, tuck it, But are you going to do the excessive one where some people go in, they strip their whole face off, they tear their faces off and put it back on? Do you see where I'm coming from? It's incredible. All in an effort to look perfect all the time. Never a downtime, never an off time. That's the negative messaging because it's not ideal. And it's not realistic in real time for real folk. And what happens is people imbibe those and then create negative personas around them. You are accepted just the way you are. All I say, if you feel like your health is at risk, then do something about it. Go walk, talk to your doctor, find something that can alleviate and remedy that situation. But for the love of God, do not let someone else's stereotypical idea of what beauty is become the way that you look. That's it. That's what I'm done with that. So the story we wanted to talk about was the story of Uncle Nearest. You've all heard the story about Nearest Green. He was a slave who helped Jack Daniel to create the Jack Daniel whiskey empire. But that story emerged 2 years ago because for a while, more than 100 years, that story was shuttered. This story took place in Lynchburg, Tennessee, the birthplace of Jack Daniel whiskey. Now, Jack Daniel whiskey is a white family, right? They own the Jack Daniel label. But what about Nearest Green, who is the actual creator who introduced the concept to Jack Daniel? Now, everybody who lived 100 and odd years ago knew that story, but over time, the messaging was lost. The wider public did not know. So they have reached a settlement, and now someone has picked up the thought, and the Jack Daniels family had come together with Nearest Green's descendants and said, okay, one of the best ways to commemorate your ancestor is to put his name on a bottle. So it's called Uncle Nearest. So there's a new whiskey out. It's in 48 states and 140 countries around the globe. And it's called Uncle Nearest. And it talks about the legacy of Nearest Green, the slave who helped to create Jack Daniel, the whiskey empire. Now, I'm not a whiskey drinker and I don't drink bourbon, right? So I really don't know. I don't know how it tastes. So I can't say that it's a good whiskey or whatever. I'm not a drinker, so I don't know that part of it. But I do say, to commemorate the legacy, I feel that there are more stories like this, and that more of this needs to come out. That more of these kinds of stories. It is disingenuous to think that only one group of people created stuff. It's not. One of the things I admire about Silicon Valley, that as much as they look like they're swayed one way, there are other creators. Now, there's a whole group of people in Silicon Valley who are Black, who don't get the funding, who are equally as talented. But that is going to change. It's changing because technology is changing. It's changing. It's changing. It's changing. It takes time, but it's changing. And as soon as we can get to that, then we realize how much stuff is changing. It looks vastly different than it did 100 years ago. Nobody was talking about Nearest Green. Now it's a reality. So if you're out and about, go look up the story of Uncle Nearest, the story of Nearest Green, the slave who helped to create Jack Daniels. And we can almost think that George Washington Carver, anyone who did a lot and a lot, didn't he create the oil that runs the engines? We need to check that one out, right? Wonder if his family members and his descendants are getting anything off his legacy. So you know what that tells all of us? What does it tell you? Own your OYS. Own your stuff. You have something. Patent it. Make sure there's a patent on it. I'm sorry, I come from the Caribbean, so my pronunciation rather is sometimes a little different than you're accustomed to. So patent it. Apply for a patent. Yes, it's expensive, but you know what else you can do? There are other ways you can patent something. Make sure that you own it and your name is on it, right? I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I hired a publicist. This was back in 1999. I lived in Tampa. I lived in Orlando. I hired a publicist in Tampa to promote my book Visions. And she introduced me to some other people, and we were connecting with other people outside of Florida. And she wanted my manuscript. At the time, I really didn't see the necessity of having my manuscript. I was like, you're a publicist? Why do you need my manuscript? If we're going to submit it to a publisher, that's how I thought. But she insisted that she had to read my manuscript. So I had a dream one night. In the dream, I dreamt that she published my book and took the credit for it under her name, and that I showed up at a book signing, and she had the posters, with my book on it. My friends, was not a good look. Was not a good look. I had that dream. Do you know what I did when I got up the next morning? I didn't just call her. I drove to her house from Orlando to Tampa. I said, give me my manuscript. But I didn't tell her I had a dream. I said, give me my manuscript. Did you make a copy? She said, no, I didn't make a copy. I took my manuscript back. Own your stuff, right? Own your stuff. Put a patent on it, put copyright on it, mail it to yourself. You've just copyrighted it. Now you own it. Own your stuff. Put your name on it. You have an idea, patent it, and put your name on it. Don't let somebody else come along 100 years from now. Suddenly, what you created, what you thought of, suddenly somebody else has it, and your descendants are standing there looking like, no. Put your name on it. Own your stuff. Own it. It's yours. Patent it. Be proud of it. Put it out there under your name. Patent it. Mail it to yourself. Create a thing, a legacy on it. Go create a whole Facebook page and you're the administrator. And then because somebody will see, people look for ideas. I told my niece years ago, she's an artist. She creates stuff, magnificently. She wants to be a graphic artist. The stuff she creates, but she uploaded them to her Instagram page. I'm like, take them down. Put your name in the corner. Put your name on it. Copyright your name. Because somebody goes on Instagram and puts in the search engine flowers, and then your images pop up. And guess what? They use it. There's a story about that. You've heard that story about a woman whose images were used on a famous brand, and they wouldn't pay her for it. And she went to court and produced the evidence that it was her. She actually took them to court. She won. They had to pay her the value of it. Yes. So own your stuff, your idea. This is your style. If you're a hairstylist, this is your brand. Create a video about it. Put it out there on YouTube. Put your name on it. You sit in your kitchen and you come up with an idea for a new lipstick. You come up with a formula and mix colors together, mix products together for a lipstick, and it works. Put your name on it. You come up with something else that we can use. You're a brand developer, an app developer. For the love of God, put your name on it. Patent it and own it. Because you can sit there and watch someone else walking off with the credits for what you have done. Put your name on it. If it alienates people in your circle, well, maybe they don't need to be there, right? That's okay. It's not about them. It's about you, right? And it's about what legacy you are leaving to the folks who are coming after you. They want to say their great-grandfather stood for something. They want to say their great-grandmother stood for something, right? So put your name on it. A few years ago, I close on this. I went to Washington, D.C., and I had never done the tour, right? So I took a tour of Washington, D.C. And one of the things we discovered is that up until that point, they were digitally archiving your tweets, right? So digital communication, and it was endless because it's digital. And I sat there and everybody was like, whoa, everybody had conspiracy theories going. You know what was my theory? Darn, so the generations after this are going to know exactly what I tweet about. As of now, I will only tweet about the stuff that matters. That was how I looked at it. Because all I was seeing was legacy. What will people after me, think of me? What will they say that I stood for? You see what I'm saying? So make sure you patent it. It's yours. If you create something, I'm going to hide the maker of this. Say, this is your jar. Go invest in yourself. It's worth it. If you create something that somebody can put on their face and it makes you feel good, go buy the labels, vistaprint.com, and you can Google labels and who makes labels. You can get some for less than $100. Put it on your container and put it out there. Take a picture with you, brand it, put you, your name, your product, your date of creation, put it out there and make sure that everyone knows that it's you. Don't just let them walk away. Nearest Green's relatives, it's been over 100 years, but finally they're getting their comeuppance. Finally, they're getting their money. Finally, they're getting the recognition that is due to them, right? It's Fearless Friday. Be totally fearless. Be fearless in all that you do. Be fearless in all that you do. Go and make life and live gloriously. Live your life gloriously. Ain't that the truth, right? And it's summer. So as soon as this is done, I'm gone. I will be out all day enjoying the weather and living my life gloriously. Thank you so much for joining. Come back and join us on Monday when we talk about the things that matter. We talk about what matters, the things that matter to you. And if you find that my stories are interesting and are of a blessing to you, please go to my website, harrietkemmick.com. Also, switch over to the exodusfoundation.com. Help us by leaving a donation. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3 organization. That means we're tax exempt. That means the IRS recognizes our status. So go, and any deduction that you make is greatly appreciated and is tax deductible when you file your taxes next time. So go to the exodusfoundation.com. Help us as we bring relief and comfort and help to those who are in need. We're all hearing about sex trafficking. So R. Kelly was indicted on federal charges. I think we've all forgotten how the system is structured. So maybe the state didn't finish the job. So now the feds have taken over the job. So now he's facing indictments in two different jurisdictions, here in Chicago and in the Southern District of New York. And we all know that the prosecutors in the Southern District of New York don't get involved, right? So we're all hearing about sex trafficking. So we all know now, finally, for all of us, we're finally saying thank you. They're holding people accountable. So your money is not a shield. You can't hide behind the veneer of your money, your wealth, your position, and your status. They are going to find a way because too many people hurt. The hurts are deep, and too many people have been damaged and traumatized as a result of what happened to them during these experiences. It is something. Here in Detroit, they are human trafficking task force. There's a Michigan human trafficking task force headed by the Michigan State Police. There are other local jurisdictional task forces that are looking for because now we have all come across people who are damaged and people who hurt. And it is not fair to take advantage of people who can't do better, people who are economically vulnerable. And there are people who are nefarious, who want to have sex with underage people. Recently, a story broke overnight in Detroit, I think 2 days ago, about a man, a black man, a local businessman, who went to the Dominican Republic and came back sick. And I mean, the comments on Instagram were just unbelievable. I was rolling on the floor laughing, right? But there are too many people who are performing sex trafficking acts and who are going out of country and doing it because they know they can get caught. The feds are always watching. They never stop. They peruse. You all know that I'm sharing my screen right now on Facebook.com. You think that when my camera is off, that they're still not looking? Okay, right? This morning, my daughter was going to court. Maps, the app on her phone, said it's 26 minutes to the courthouse that she's going to. And we were like, how does it know that she goes to court every Friday morning? How does it know? We were freaked out. I'm like, I almost want to delete it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's either listening to our conversations or it knows that you have patterns. How does Maps know that after every Friday morning at between 7 and 7:15, it knows that she leaves home to go to work at the courthouse every Friday morning, consistently? Mind blowing. So they're always watching and they're always listening. Sex traffickers use phones to conduct their business. The feds are watching. Those who traffic in persons, the feds are watching and they're listening. It's only a matter of time before they get to people because too many people are hurt from it. Too many people are damaged. And here's the thing. Here's the kicker. You want to know the kicker? For some people, they never recover. The damage is too great, right? People who have been traumatized as children, especially in terms of sexual violation, those folks, sometimes they never recover. So as a society, we have to do better. And sometimes the only way you can do it is to put a cuff on it, is to hold people accountable who should know better and who don't do better because they think their money is a license to do what they want to do, right? Options? Yeah. So go to my website, theexodusfoundation.com. Help us as we help others who can't help themselves. We become their voice and we give them hope. Hope is a powerful thing, right? So this weekend, I'm hoping for great weather. It's going to be hot. I love it. I love it. Just a few months ago, I was crying about the cold. Well, I'm not crying about the heat. We have air-conditioned homes, air-conditioned vehicles, air-conditioned buildings. Amen. Cold drinks on deck. Amen. Right? So we'll be imbibing and drinking all the cold drinks we can get. I love my frozen lattes. Yes, they hit the spot, right? I make frozen lemonades and so on. I don't drink the sugary drinks. Y'all stop drinking the sugary drinks. You know that. Grocery store. Right? Make some lemonade. Just put some sugar and some lemon juice in some water, stir it up, put some ice to it, they're off. At least your body will take that and convert it to energy rather than the complex artificial sugars that are in some sugary drinks. Right? It's kind of like detangling and demystifying our lives, right? Our lives, foods we eat are so complex. They're rarely natural, they're mostly processed. So be that as may. Go and live your life gloriously this weekend. Enjoy the holiday. Enjoy your time off. Live your life gloriously. Celebrate you. Maybe nobody else does, but that's okay. You do you. You celebrate you. Right? So many times. Next week, I'm going to do a story on the doctor who did the testing on cancer in animals. I'm looking for funding to do the testing on humans. Yeah, I'll tell you more about how that story happened and why that is important, and how sometimes I think they're hiding stuff from us. Like I really think they know more, right? Yeah, and then I'm gonna do a story on tech billionaires who are looking for alternative planets. So rather than try to fix what they broke in making their gazillions, they're going to do what? They are finding other. So I'm going to give you all an assignment next week, and I'm going to tell you the name of the movie I want you all to watch, and then we're going to talk about it. Is that okay? I'm going to tell you the movie. Yeah, like seriously. And the rest of us are like, so if I don't have gazillion dollars, you mean to tell me I'll be stuck on this broken planet that your money broke because you wanted to make as much money as you could so you could live, and now you're saying that the planet is so broken they feel that a catastrophic event is going to happen and that there are going to be riots and people are going to riot and they feel threatened. And I'm like, what bubbles do you live in? I'm not saying that that won't happen or it's not something that is likely to happen, but I'm like, you created a catastrophe. Fix it, right? So we're going to talk about that. And some of them, and here's the conundrum about that is this. Guess what? Some of those tech billionaires are people whom I have admired. Makes me rethink that. So we're going to talk about that and more come next week. I want to thank you so much for joining us. So we talked about body image and all kinds of stuff. I never let anyone put me in a box. They will not know that in a short conversation with me, I ain't the one. Absolutely. Right? Right? So let me say this before I sign off. This is your assignment for this weekend. Speak kindly to yourself. Even I am guilty of that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what were you thinking? Speak kindly to yourself because your body is a living organism. It hears you breathe and it hears the words you say about yourself. I don't care who rejected you or who told you you were not good enough for them. Nod your head. Yes, I was better than you. I'm too good for you. But I am the best that I am for myself. Set your standard for you. This is you. This is what you're about. Set your standard for you. So speak kindly to yourself. Are we all committed to doing that? Are we all going to do that? Speak kindly to yourself all weekend long. Say nice things to yourself, right? Like put down the chocolate cake. Yeah. Put down the Coke. Whatever. Thanks so much, everybody. See you. See you. See you. Bye for now. Bye for now. Bye for now. Bye for now, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I so appreciate you taking the time out to be part of our experience. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, everybody. It was great. It was great. It was great. Thank you. I missed that. Oh, I missed that. Huh. I missed that. Huh. I missed that. Oh. Oh my. Oh. Yes, we should. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh no, no, no. Why are we previewing cancel? Cancel. Cancel. I'm still canceling. I'm canceling. This just doesn't want to end this morning. And why is my end? Would you please? I have my computers suck.